Monsoon has arrived and it brings with it a few very interesting creatures. Many of us like to watch birds, some like to observe trees and plants. Now is the season to observe amphibians. In general, the mention of frogs and toads evokes unpleasant reaction in many people. Yet, almost all of us like to see the very colorful frogs from Mexico, Brazil, from some equatorial regions, from the Amazonian rainforest, etc., in photographs. India houses 6% of the global amphibian diversity, yet we are largely oblivious to their role in maintaining ecological balance. Let us hear from Dr. Gururaja KV of Srishti Manipal Institute of a very novel approach to conserving these magnificent creatures.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Guru Raja KV, faculty member at Srishti Manipal Institute of Art, Design and Technology. Have been working on amphibians of Western Ghats and Western Himalayas from last 20 years. And today I would like to take you through some of the conservation initiatives and how people can participate in conservation. So many times when we talk about amphibians, people think that they are icky, creepy, crawly creatures, and many times they don't feel like handling them or even to look at them. And that has posed serious issues with when we talk about conserving amphibians. So in my today's presentation, or in fact, you can call it as a conversation, I'll be taking you through one of the key concepts that I had developed way back in 2012, which is called Batracharium. And I'm going to share the slides. As you are aware, there are so many species in India. It's about 455, 445 to 445 to 455 is what people are talking about. And if you imagine 20 years ago, something like in 2000 or earlier to that, we had hardly 200 species. So what has happened in the last 20 years that there are a lot of enthusiasm shown in amphibian conservation, and there are more people getting involved in looking at amphibians. And along with that, there are technological advancements as well as the safety with which you can do field work has grown enormously. So these are a couple of reasons for which we have about 200 odd species added up in the last 20 years. So at present, we stand somewhere here in terms of amphibians. We have, in India, we have all the three orders. Anurans are those which are tailless amphibians like frogs and toads. We have chordata, or the tailed amphibians. Chorda means tail. These are salamanders, but they are not geckos because they don't have scale. And if you count the fingers in the hand, there will be only 4 fingers. There is something which looks like an earthworm. These are called Gymnophiona, or the Sicilians. They are about 40 species in India. And if you look at the discovery pattern, this is what I was exactly trying to convey. So we started way back in 1799, with Schneider describing about 5 species in that point in time, which are very common species like Euphlyctus, Cyanophyctus, or the burrowing frog. But then it slowly started adding more and more number of species. And you can also see that earlier it used to be a couple of spikes in the discovery, but in last 20 years, there are more and more species being added each year, thanks to a number of researchers and the kind of technology we have adapted. So in a nutshell, what I would like to say here is that in last 20 years, India has seen about 40% of its amphibian diversity. But if that's the only criteria to look at India, we would have been more happy. But the issue here is that more than 60% of the species are not assessed. So if you look at the last two columns in the graph shown here, we don't have for about 269 species, where they are, how many of them are there, what kind of habitat they live in, what is the population status, what is the habitat status. We have no clue. So that makes our scenario worse. In the sense, in the past, when people have assessed species which are data deficient or not assessed, they would eventually fall into the first two categories. So if the same thing happens with India, let us say there are 269 species which are not assessed and they fall into critically endangered or endangered criteria, now the balance shifts completely towards endangered and critically endangered species in India, which is a scenario which we really don't want to be in. So what does it mean? That means whatever amphibians that we are discovering, we don't have any habitat, or their populations are going down, or something bad happening to these amphibians. So how do we then talk about conservation? So if that is going to happen, so do we have any answer for this? And that is when we pitched in a concept of Batracharium. I will come to that. Before that, we'll also try to figure out how many species we have, what kind of diversity we have. So we have sober looking species like common toads or burrowing frogs, which are very dull in color, to something which is very vibrant like the Rhacophorus lateralis or Rhacophorus malbaricus kind of thing, which is greenish and red combination kind of colors. And there were tiny weeny small individuals, but they make very loud sound. And there are some tree dwelling toads, and there are some which have large balloon kind of thing. And we have India's largest frog like bullfrogs, and to a tiniest frog like Nyctibatrachus. So we have a lot of variety, not only in terms of where they are, it's also about their color, their habitats, and ecosystem. So India is rich in terms of diversity, color, habitat, all those stuff. But what we lack is their information on their ecology. And that is where we need people participation, as well as people to populate data from their neighborhood. Anybody need not have to travel to Western Ghats to conserve amphibians. You can do it in your neighborhood. I will come to all those things in a while. So let us just look at what Western Ghats is all about. So this is a western mountain chain of something like 1,600 kilometers approximately, from 8 degrees south to 21 degrees north. It starts at Kanyakumari, reaches up to Dangs. And if you see in this graph, the yellow colored boundary is what is marked as Western Ghats. And you can also see a cream colored patch over here. These are the protected areas. These are whether it's a national park or a wildlife sanctuary, these are all protected areas. And these protected areas are less than 5% of the entire geographic area of Western Ghats. That means there is a need for more conservation areas, but it cannot happen in a go that all the places in Western Ghats need to be brought under protected area. Eventually it has to happen, but right now how we can do it is, again, leads to Batracharium. So I'm also trying to show you how these Western Ghats are also helping in number of river basins. So majority of these southern states get water from the Western Ghats. So if you don't have Western Ghats, you don't have water. That will be the key case. If you also look at the mountain elevations from southern part of Western Ghats, if you move towards north, you will see that elevation goes to like lesser elevation in the northern part of Western Ghats and higher elevation in the southern part of Western Ghats. And we have two natural breaks. One is called the Shenkota Gap and the other one is called the Palghat Gap. You can see it here. So this has all, and in addition to these kind of geographical phenomena, we also have monsoon. We also have phenology, like the vegetation and all, that determines the kind of diversity of amphibians that we have in Western Ghats. So some glimpse of Western Ghats, you can see that these are perennial streams originate from the hilltop. It goes through a gorge or a valley, and you can see tall trees all around those rivers or streams. And you can also see some of the grasslands on the hilltops. These are not wastelands. These are the ones which actually hold back the water and give them for a period of time. again, there were debates once way back saying that these grasslands are wastelands, but they are not so. They are ecosystem, but they are very, very important in the ecosystem conservation as well as river conservation. So we have some of these forest patches in the Western Ghats. So let me just focus in Western Ghats what has happened. Again, majority of the species that we describe from India belongs to Western Ghats, and a little more probably from the Northeast region. The whole Batracharium concept actually comes from these three aspects. One is to protect or add more areas into protected areas, but they are outside the protected area. So what to do with it? Second thing is only a handful of scientists cannot do conservation. We need people. We need people who are residing in these areas. So we want to educate them. We want to involve them, and then that's how we will lead more comprehensive and inclusive approach for conservation. And the third one is about the species. So what we are talking about has very much seasonality pattern, and there are high diversity associated with it. So we brought all the three concepts together and proposed this concept of Batracharium. And what we tried out is in these three areas. Luckily, we also had very positive thinking, very enthusiastic people from these areas. One is Mandapappu Mane in Mala in Western Ghats. Other one is Hotel Taj in Madikeri. And the third one is Honey Valley Estate in Evakapadi. And the key elements of Batracharium is that it has amphibian trails, it has list of species recorded, there will be a pocket guidebook, there will be an activity book, and guidelines for field trials. So basically an idea over here is that it will be an in situ program rather than taking frogs out and keeping it in a zoo kind of stuff or in a terrarium or an aquarium. We are saying, let us do something conservation in the place where they belong. We will not move frogs, but we will move people. So that is what is the aim of Batracharium. So how it all started, if this looks very boring, you can read through. I will not go through this at this point in time because these are all available now already on the net. So if you look at Batracharium, the paper will emerge. So go through that. What we got in our initial surveys is that we got more than 40 species belonging to 9 families. Again, don't worry about scientific names over here. What is key to observe here is that these amphibians are, what we are talking about conservation is from the site itself. We are not relocating any species. We are not bringing any species in here. It is all the species available in that particular locality. And we are then saying, let us make this as a Batracharium. So some of the species are the common toads, the Malabar tree toad, which is one of the endangered species, and we are having a program on that. And then we have Malabar torrent toad, amazing colors on the dorsum, and it shows something called Unken reflex. When you touch it or when some predator comes to it, it will fall flat on its back so that the red patches are shown to the predator and they will run away from it thinking that it's something dangerous. And then we have very common species like cricket frogs. We have another cricket frog over here, then the skittering frogs, and very tiny individuals like narrow-mouthed frogs, some leaping frogs. We have a critically endangered species called Gundia leaping frog, which actually halted some of the developmental project in Gundia because presence of this critically endangered species and people were behind making conservation reserve, removing all these Gundia species and keeping it a terrarium and making it conservation reserve. But we denied that kind of work. We said if any conservation has to happen, it has to happen in situ, nothing to move out of the site. Okay, so then we have Wayanad night frog, Kempolia night frogs. These are very interesting species to look at, and their behaviors are really excellent to observe. And then we have Coorg night frog, some dancing frogs too, like this elegant dancing frog. This was discovered way back in 1937 by Professor Rao, and for 73 years nobody knew what it was, and later on it was rediscovered by Biju and me from the type locality. And then we have Wayanad dancing frog, some of the bush frogs like knob-handed bush frog, glandular bush frogs, the Charius bush frog, again, a 1937 species. And then we have Coorg yellow bush frog, which makes a metallic sound. And then we have Wayanad bush frog and some of the tree frogs and Malabar gliding frog. And the last one to show in this picture is the small tree frog. Again, most amazing, beautifully looking. You need not have to go to Venezuela to take the picture of this kind of species. You have right here in the Western Ghats to do it. And probably many of the species are also available in your neighborhood, but we have not looked into. That's also, there's also a possibility of that. So these are the field sites we selected. The Manna Papu Mane, you can see that it's actually a 200-year-old home. It's being renovated, and people were thinking how to get more people in this area. And I was one of the participants way back in 2018 looking at the place. And then we figured out it has a lot of streams and there are many species over there. We said, okay, let's make this as a batracharium. And this is one such area. Then we have Hotel Taj in Madikeri. Again, this is a 5-star hotel. This is now boasting of itself being the first one to officially host a batracharium. Because if you talk about conservation in these kind of areas, it is generally towards larger, bigger, charismatic species like tigers, or you do some bird watching kind of stuff, but nothing towards small species like frogs. But this is the first ever hotel in India. First ever batracharium itself has happened in this area. Kudos to management and people over there who have very like-minded and conservation-oriented people. And then we have Honey Valley Estate, which was till 1990s one of the largest producers of honey. Later on, due to some viral infections that went off, so they stuck to hosting people. So this has 400 acres, and we have one more batracharium over there. So what was the criteria from these three people who hosted batracharium is that they also pointed out when people come to these areas, when they come in summer or winter, people generally go out doing bird watching, and they do bird watching or probably they do a hiking kind of thing. The moment these places hits monsoon, for example, June, July, August, people doesn't want to go out of the cottages. They want to stay back. They just enjoy rain, and that's what happens. So they were asking me, Guru, is there a way for us to take these people out during the monsoon? And that's again pictures exactly for the kind of work I do. So that's where we also said, okay, we have frogs to watch during monsoon. That's a fantastic idea. We'll just integrate this, and that's what we did. So what we said is we will give all the points, how to prepare yourself for the field work, how to get yourself educated about it, what are the safety norms you have to take, what are the snakes around there, so where to look for frog, all these things we listed. We had a conversation with the localites over there, and then we said, see, you have a small booklet over here, and you can ask people to go out in the night. It will be adventurous. And we have also located places which are safe and kids friendly. So what they can do is they can go out, watch frogs in a safe area, and they will definitely see more frogs in these areas. So that is one of the, what do you say, it gelled well with the kind of issues the owners of these areas pointed to us. So we did some frog walks in those areas. This is a daytime shot. There were dancing frogs over there. So what we did was we walked around these areas. We wanted to get the idea what kind of species resides in an area. So we did some 3 to 4 walks in one area. We got a lot of information about the kind of species one can see. So we also hosted walks during the monsoon. You can see it's heavily flooded, same area, but it's heavily flooded now in the monsoon. And what kind of species come over there. So you have a seasonal aspect of different species coming in an area. We also involved people to feel free, like frogs need not be watched only by scientists. So if you see here, this is a place in Honey Valley, and these cement tanks were put there to store water. And then the owner's wife and his daughter, they are really passionate about conserving frogs. And you can see there is a Rhacophorus malbaricus over there. They, when they breed and leave out nest outside these areas, they bring and keep it into these water tanks and they rear them. So, and many people who come for a casual walk, and when they want to see, people will say, and even Suresh and his wife, they will show them there are Rhacophorus malbaricus over there, and people are enjoying looking at this frog because it's one of the photogenic frog and easy to take pictures. It doesn't jump on your face, and people are happy looking at a frog which is like a Venezuelan frog in India, which is green with red webbing kind of stuff, right? So there were much higher versions of frog walks where people want to really take photographs and they want to hike and do herping kind of stuff. We also do that, but at the same time we give all ethical standards in the sense, if you see over here, we are asking them not to use huge flashes, or if they are using, we ask them to blur the light so that it doesn't harm the eyes of the frog. So all this ethical practice we tell, and we also practice when we do it, and we generally don't handle any of the frogs. So that's another thing, key thing in frog conservation. People think that holding a frog or staging a frog to get a great picture will help in conservation. That might have helped, but looking at nowadays, it is good not to handle any frogs. Just leave them where they are. Take pain in going to their habitat and taking picture rather than staging them and taking a picture, which is a shortcut according to me. Okay, so so initial thought of Batracharium was something like this. We wanted to put large A4 kind of all-season sheets on which the frogs were printed, and they were put on a wooden stump of about 3 feet, and that will be located all the places wherever you will be able to see the species. For example, this is Oaklander bush frog. In this, there is a Oaklander over there, so people can go and watch Oaklander in that area. But this initial idea, when we iterated many number of times, even though it looks very good for anybody who is coming for the first time, but what it does is it actually distracts, or it's not aesthetically pleasing. It actually disturbs in an area. Some of these boards are really disturbing kind of thing. So what we did later on is that instead of putting all these boards, we put all these things in a small booklet and gave it to the people who want to go to the field rather than keeping a board over here. So these boards are removed now. See, you can see that initial stages where we try to put the board on a lake. This is Rhacophorus malbaricus, and then lateralis photograph. But yeah, so it looks all of a sudden very artificial kind of stuff, seeing like a frog poster in the middle of a tank looks really odd. So we changed that. We brought all these things into booklet form, and we train people before they head out. So all the places, whether it is Mannapapumane or Honey Valley Estate or Hotel Taj, there are trainers, there are naturalists who will train you before heading out for frog walks. So it's also interesting here that we engage with kids too. Many times this is what is the age at which one should target, because this is the age at which frogs are exposed to kids, but they are exposed as icky creatures. So instead of that, what we try to do is we brought fun activities like paper folding, and then we also had some frog artifacts, and you can see a couple of them right behind me over there. And what we did was, this was fun. When they folded, in a way, they now know the parts of a frog. So they said, oh, this is head, there are eyes, these are hands, these are the legs, and this is the body. So that is what I also wanted, in the sense we also wanted. So anybody who wants to look at frog, you need to know how to look at it. So paper folding or origami has become one part of our engagement with kids. They enjoyed it. They also made some folds so that frogs can jump. So in a way, they brought all the stuff of a scientific teaching of taxonomy into this activity. and they were enjoying. And we also said that in the initial stages, we will not use cameras when we go out for field. We said we'll take notebooks and we'll try to sketch. And these sketches need not be like an actual sketch. It can be as rough as possible, but you need to figure out what portion you are seeing and where you want to put those characters. So this has helped a lot with kids engaging enormously for the time that is given with them. And there was no hurry. They were at their own pace, and we were all together so that we will observe, even if it is only 2 or 3 species, but we would have observed it for long so that we will not forget the character of that species. One of the flip points of using smartphone or camera is that we take a lot of pictures, but we forget to observe the species, where it was sitting, what it was doing. We think that taking a snapshot would help us in identifying later on kind of thing, but we would have forgotten completely its habitat or its behavior kind of stuff. So we have reversed that process in doing these kind of activities, where kids now take out notebooks and do it. And when we do field work also, we do these kind of ethical practices. This is scientific measurement of certain species. We ask them to wear gloves because there are possibilities that we can spread diseases to frogs, and frogs themselves have some disease called chytridiomycosis, which we don't want to become vectors. So this is how we train people, and once we train them, now we bring them to a common platform. So once they observe, so what to do with that then? So that is where we talk about Frog Watch, which is done under India Biodiversity Portal. It is also under Creative Commons licensing. So one need not have to worry that what happens to my data, whether scientists run away with the data. No, you will be credited for the data that you provide, and it will be in your name. So nobody can run away with your data. And we are always talking about empowering people over here. It is not about somebody collects data for somebody else. It is a collaborative networking kind of conservation measure that we are talking about. So those who have taken some pictures and want to post it, they can do it on Frog Watch on India Biodiversity Portal. So right now we have a program on Malabar tree toad, which I showed you picture some couple of slides back. This is one of the toad, which is unlike other toads, capable of climbing onto trees, which has pads and all. And till 2004, there were only 4 observations so far from the Western Ghats. The first ever observation was way back in 1875, and the next observation was in 1980. So it was after 105 years, there was one observation that has happened. So is that means this is such a rare species? No, it wasn't, because last 5-6 years or last 10 years, if you say, when we started observing across Western Ghats, this species was abundant wherever we found it. So that made us to rethink about the status of it. As of now, IUCN says it's an endangered species. But if you do the observation, and you can also see in Malabar tree toad in India Biodiversity Portal, there is 74 observation that has come from people. So they posted the observation across Western Ghats. That means the species is quite available, abundant across Western Ghats. We are working on that, and we need like more people to participate in it. How to do it? Wherever you are in the Western Ghats, just go in the initial period of monsoon, like first week of June till third week of June. Listen to a particular sound. We also have given a toad call in the Malabar tree toad website. Listen to that call, keep it with you, and go to the field and try to listen whether the sound is coming anywhere close to you. And then if you're listening to it, record it and post it. You need not even have to take a picture. You can just record a voice and post it on India Biodiversity Portal. So that gives us an insight where this call is coming from and what is happening to its stages, right? So it in a way, it also helps scientists to come about think about a species which we thought endangered, but eventually it may change its status to something like less, like only vulnerable or less threatened kind of thing, which is a good sign. You need not have to have all the species in threatened list. If it is possible based on the scientific evidence, if a species can be delisted, it should be done, because that also helps in understanding what is happening to amphibians. So some of the outreach materials that we did, this is In fact, this is Suresh and his wife from Honey Valley Estate. And these are the books that we gave to him through Batracarium project, which is funded by Rufus, and it is given to Preeti Hebbar. So we produced a number of books over there. We also did some stickers, giveaway kind of stuff. And Suresh was really happy. So he's happy in two ways. One is that he can engage people giving this book to them and say, please go and watch, because it has all the trails where one can go and watch frogs. And in other sense, he can now engage his staff for other activities. Every time when in monsoon, when people ask for frog walk, he has to send one of his staff member for frog walks. Now he can do away just by giving this booklet to participant or the frog walkers. So that's why he's really happy. And this is how the booklet looks like. It has all the information about the frog, where to watch, how it look like, how would it look like. And there are activities for kids. And these are, again, educative and less intense kind of thing. It is more about how you engage with frogs in the surrounding. So when they croak, can you produce a similar kind of croak? When they're sitting motionless, can you sit like that and observe how a frog will be looking at the world? If you are a frog, how you would see the world. So these are some tiny activities for kids, but it will be very engaging so that it's fun as well as learning experience for them. So we made some stickers and we didn't say save frogs. We said think frogs. So we want somebody to take the ownership and think like a frog. What is happening to it? If it is sitting on a tree, how it would be. If you cut a tree, what will happen to it? Think from that perspective. That's why we gave this particular logo called Think Frog. So we also provided some takeaway cards. Again, we didn't want to make it small cards. We thought it should be large enough so that it can be pinned on a board. So we made it A5 size cards, and it had all the information kind of thing. And we also provided links if somebody really is interested and wants to post it. We also had a Frog Find app. So we were giving all the links to that, as well as to links to Frog Watch. Right. To conclude on Batracarium part, what is interesting in this entire exercise was that apart from protected areas, which is owned by government, we were able to add something like 600 acres of private land. And this is not for larger animals, but it's also for amphibians. I'm not excluding any species over here, but what I'm trying to convey is there is private land which is talking about amphibian conservation. So we were able to add that here. And we have about 40 species, regular and informed frog walks along these Batracarium. So people are safe in walking in this because they are hardly 500 to 700 meters in length, and one can finish it with about 2 hours of walk, and they can see more than 20-25 species. And being in India, that's another part we think about is we need to see more species, right? Because it's so diverse. So if you say I have seen only 10 frogs, people will be looking at you like, are you in a urban area? But when you these frog trails, you will at least see some 20-25 species. That's assured. These take-home cards, stickers are popular and they are educative. Guidebooks are helping the visitors. So it contains every material over there. What is the safety norms? What is the ethical practice? What should be done? What shouldn't be done? And yeah, visitors are engaged in outdoor activities, which is what the owners were looking for. And that is what is happening. And on the scientific front, people are observing and posting that on India Biodiversity Portal. So in a way, we are now looking at the maps with the dot information that is coming, and there are people who moderate all this stuff. And they are saying that there are a lot of observation that is coming in India Biodiversity Portal. Not necessarily from this Batracarium, but in the last 5-6 years, if you see, Frog Watch was started in 2014. In the last 6 years, you see that frog observation has come from across India, from Andamans to Northeast to Western Ghats to other parts of India. So it is going and growing in a right direction. That's what I feel. So that is to conclude about this Batracharium thing. I have another few slides to share, which is on the Malabar tree toad mapping. Quickly to talk about a frog watch. Again, for frog watch programs, one need not have to be an expert. Again, the term I hate actually. There's no expert. We are all researchers. We keep doing research. One need not have to have any understanding about frogs. But what you can do is you should have some passion, or you should have some idea towards frog, and you just want to watch them. That's what is required, and nothing else. So if you are that kind of person who wants to watch any animal, frog watch is one of the area where you can actually contribute. So this is, as I said earlier, this is under Creative Commons licensing, and many people participate in that, who can be a 5-year-old kid to somebody who are like 70-year-old. There's no age restriction. There's no qualification required for all these things. What is required is to go out, watch something, report it. So far on Malabar tree toad, this is how the reporting has happened. It has come from Western Ghats. These are just some of the reports which is not able to pinpoint to the locality. That's why it goes to the center of India. And otherwise, if you see, all the reports have come from the Western Ghats. It's again a clear indication that the species belongs to Western Ghats. As I said, as of today, there are 74 observations of Malabar tree toad. And in one instance, there was a small toadlet that is being put as Malabar tree toad, but there are moderators who look into the data details and then they verify what species it is. So they figured out that was not a thing. So among 75, the 74 observations actually match with Malabar tree toad. So this is how the contributions are happening. Initially, Malabar tree toad, when it was observed, we, as of now, what we know ecologically is that it's only from June to June first week to July, or June third week is what Malabar tree toad you can observe. But in the last 4 years, again, people have started populating it. Now we know that in southern Kerala, it starts as early as March, and it goes into northern part of Karnataka and Maharashtra in early July. So this frog is there from, that means it is there from March to July, not just June. So that's an understanding that we were able to gain through people's participation. So what you can do, is you can upload an image, an audio, or a video, and that's it. So you can use your device to do it. We are not asking you to hold a big camera, bazooka camera kind of thing, and go and close and take pictures. You need not have to worry about any of those things. You keep your phone, switch on its audio recording, record it for 2 minutes. If you know the species, you can very well say it in the audio itself, or you can just post saying that I heard this particular call, can this be identified? This seems to be coming from a frog. So there are experts, there are moderators over here who will be able to identify it for you, and that will be in your name. So that is about a frog watch program that I'm part of, and we are doing it from last 6 years with people. Definitely, to conclude, I would say that if people are not there for conservation of amphibians, it will be very difficult with a handful of scientists spread across India. I am talking about Western Ghats. It can also be in your neighborhood, because we need to know what species we have in a place like, whether it is Bangalore, whether it is Mysore, whether it is Pune, whether it is Mumbai, Delhi. Urban diversity is another field which has not been looked into in terms of amphibians. So it is a high time for all of us to look at frogs which is in your neighborhood, rather than going to exquisite forest patch to look at diversity. It can happen in your neighborhood. So keep an eye and ear open, look at frogs, help in conserving them. Thank you very much.